Cool. So in the previous panel, we looked largely at some of the foundational definitions of civil resistance. And in this panel, we're going to go about the frontiers of civil resistance, as in where we are going next and what are the things we are exploring in the industry right now. We have great panelists here. We have Sebastian, Gary, and Peter on the panel today. Maybe again, we'll take 20 seconds each to introduce ourselves and share our products. Maybe
Sebastian, product lead for PolygonID.
Gary Shang, product marketing lead for Gitcoin Passport and core contributor to a community that thinks a lot about identity called Zuzalu.
Hey. My name is Peter. I'm building Upala digital identity. It's the system that provides human uniqueness score in dollars, which represents how much it would cost to forge an account like that. And we're already working with Gitcoin Passport to estimate how much it would cost, for example, a Discord account. Thanks.
Cool. We'll start with the first question. Again, looking towards the frontiers of where civil resistance is today. So if you could, it's a two-part question. Where do you think civil resistance matters today? And where will it matter a lot in, let's say, 5 years from today? Sebastian, you want to start this one?
Okay. Well, civil resistance matters today as in the real life. So I like to think in a world where everybody is wearing a ski mask, right? And the implications of the world, like a sci-fi movie. If you don't know anything about anyone, then the consequences are there is no reputation, there are no consequences of your acts, there is nothing, right? So I would say civil resistance matters right now for the same reasons it matters in the real world. I think in 5 years, I think there is a trend that has been discussed before, which is this ongoing trend about fake identities, fake content, fake reality, right? I think fake news are only the first use case of this virtual reality becoming more and more fake, more synthetic, right? I think in 5 years, we won't be able to trust any content at all, and we will need to trust the sources, right? And trust the source means to trust somebody with an identity that we can trace, that has a permanent reputation that cannot be deleted every day, and they bear the consequences of everything they have said, right? How much anonymous or pseudonymous we can do that experience, that's on us. But I think without that level of accountability on what everybody is saying, right, we won't have a system of trust to conduct any activity on the internet.
Thanks. I think civil resistance today matters particularly everywhere on the web, because in one sense or another, everything that users do on the web is interconnected with transferring of value, whether it be like maybe quadratic funding, voting on the Web3, and everything powered by advertisement on Web2. It's always about transferring value. So here's where like civil resistance matters, and it's everywhere. And in the course of next 5 years, I think this would be even more important. The stakes will be higher, particularly not thanks to, but due to AI. So we will have AI from both sides, AI from bots sides, and AI from fraud prevention teams. And also our digital life will become deeper. So we will go into a digital world in more and more details. Our digital life will be maybe even in 5 years already, it may be even more valuable and feeling more alive than real life.
The only thing I'll add about why civil resistance matters is if you're building something really valuable, you don't want it to be ruined, right? By people, like for example, this is, I believe that the Farcaster community opened up to not just like invite only, and they're experiencing a great decline or like just at least a lot of challenges in maintaining the quality of like the kinds of things that are being posted in Farcaster. So we need a lot of really smart people to figure out what is this balance between like exclusiveness and like painstaking curation and openness, permissionlessness. These are deeply in tension right now.
Got it. And what are the problems that we have currently with the existing Sybil resistant solutions? I know all of you are working on Sybil resistant solutions yourselves, probably to forward the solutions that we have. What are the problems that we're seeing as of today? Anyway, maybe Sebastian can.
Well, in the previous panel, they talk about different assurance levels. So at different assurance levels, you face different problems. Let's say the soft assurance levels, when you want to make sure that an account of a user is too expensive to fake 100 times, right? There are barriers that make it difficult to have not maybe 4 or 5, but no 100 or 1,000. At that level, I think the challenges are probably fragmentation, right? There is a lot of these solutions trying to do the same, and it's a matter of when we adopt the standards and things like that. To the higher level of assurance, we need biometrics. There is a high resistance to biometrics in the Web3 space and in the social imaginarium in general, right? So the problem with biometrics is not so much the technology, it's who controls the technology and who controls the data behind the technology, right? And the last thing is the pseudonymity, or let's say, every time we present a proof of our uniqueness, that's something that we cannot duplicate or change, right? And if we attach that to identifiers, right, depending on how open these identifiers are used, we can be traced and tracked across all our activities forever, right? So that's a third level of challenges.
I need to think about it.
Yeah, totally agree as well. Like standardization is one of the big problem for Sybil resistance. But I think probably even more important thing is that most of the Sybil resistance solutions, or maybe most of the all solutions that I know are subjective. So there is always a person or a group of persons who decide the parameters that end up in the user score, in the human is in the probability of an account being a human. So probably I'm a bit biased, but in my opinion, the standard and the objective parameter for evaluating the probability of human being a human is the dollar score. The cost of forgery, actually, how much it would cost to forge an account like that on the chain or anywhere.
And I think the challenge when you have this paradigm of cost of forgery, which that's largely what Gitcoin Passport is built on. You basically say you have a higher unique humanity score if you collect all these like costly identifiers. And one thing that the Passport team is fascinated by with the Reclaim team is that they're looking at very interesting identifiers that have very high cost of forgery, right? How much is the cost of forgery for an Amazon shopping account that has thousands of dollars spent? Literally thousands of dollars, right? And that's like, it's hard to beat that. But then like the big challenge is how do you not make this a dystopian nightmare where you're just aggregating way more data than just what Amazon is aggregating, because you're aggregating Amazon together with LinkedIn, with Discord and Reddit. Pretty unsolved problem, but it's really grateful that this summit's happening.
Cool. Maybe Gary, this one will start with you. Sebastian just touched a little bit upon pseudonymity. And how does Sybil resistance interop with pseudonymity? Like, what do you think is going to be an acceptable level of number of identities people are going to have? Do you have any thoughts around pseudonymity, Sybil resistance, or identity in those three points? Yeah,
I I've been really challenging the product team to figure out this how to again maintain privacy while also we're strongly considering this is the users have been asking because power users of Web3 always have multiple addresses, and so they're like, oh, my unique humanity score is like, you know, this amount of points here, this amount of points here. Can we aggregate them so that I can access the best possible things in Web3? Um, Again, it's just like this tension, right? Like, how do you engineer a system that does not defeat the purpose of them fragmenting their addresses in the first place?
I asked you this question primarily because there was a study some time back about the increasing number of pseudonymous builders on Gitcoin grants. So is that something that you've been thinking? Um,
Uh, I mean, I think the cost of forgery of building something really valuable, whether or not your legal name is actually very quite high. So if we just think about from first principles, like who would you trust? If someone, even if it was an AI that built something that solved a huge problem for your company, and the AI won the bounty, like who? It's like, would you even care?
right.
So I think generic like stamps to collect are tricky, right? Because as soon as you say that this is something to collect, there's a whole market for automatically generating these things, farming these things. I've learned recently that there's a whole market for selling legal identities, right? Like government IDs, right? So argue like theoretically, it's like if you didn't know, right, you'd be like, oh, that's a very high cost of forgery to have someone else's ID and upload it and get a good unique humanity score. Apparently, it's not very expensive actually to do that, and so we have to kind of always. But again, something that's actually useful for a piece of code that's actually super useful to a super useful company. I think that's probably among the highest things that would be hard to forge. And if we get an environment where like farmers are forcing themselves to be really good coders or something, or maybe they shift to just building dope open source software because we fix public goods, network goods funding problems, and then that just be instead of just airdrop farming, actually building useful technology that serves a lot of people is like the best thing that they could do.
Adding up to that, if we find a way to transmit our real-world identities, for example, thanks to Reclaim protocol, through Gitcoin passport, and estimate the cost of forgery with Upala, then we got this streamlined import from real world to digital world, and we can have super reliable Sybil resistance solutions available to us. But there is another angle to it. We can imagine a world where we don't even need that, or we don't need that to like do too much. I mean, we can create totally decentralized identity systems. I don't know yet how could it be done, but imagine like an identity system that is alternative to everything, to the government identity system. So you don't have to be a government citizen to be a digital citizen, and that kind of opens up many doors for a lot of implications in the digital world.
Sebastian, you want to wrap this topic up?
Well, this is something that we probably are gonna release in 2 months, but there is a way to solve that. When, however you produce your proof of uniqueness, that is a credential. And the challenge is that you need to share that credential under a certain identifier. So you present yourself to the application with an identifier, can be ID, can be your address, can be whatever, right? And then under that identifier that you use to authenticate, then you need to present the credential that prove your uniqueness. The proof of uniqueness cannot change over time. That cannot be hide or change in any way because its purpose is to be a single proof globally. Now, the key is you can change the identifier that you are presenting the proof with, right? So at least in PolygonID, you have a Genesis DID, which is your identity. You can generate something called profiles, right? These profiles are like a nullified version of your DID that you would use in each singular interaction. So if you talk to 10 applications and you present your proof of uniqueness to 10 applications, even though they are on chain, each one of these applications is seeing a different identifier for yourself. So nobody will be able to track your activity across the chain, right? Or to link your real permanent Ethereum address or whatever to that proof of uniqueness. So the transactions that you do on the other side remain private.
Got it. Got it. And following up on pseudonymity, how does pseudonymity play with regulation? We are listening a lot about regulations that might come.
Guilty until prove otherwise.
Sorry?
Everybody's guilty until they prove otherwise. In regulations, we can not provide 100% anonymity. I mean, if you do that, then you're not complying. It's as simple as that. So when regulators find some strange behavior, some strange transactions suspicious, they need to be to get access to the information, even without the consent of the user, and also without tipping the user about the fact that this information is provided. That is the law, right? So we can change the technology, but we can produce technology that keeps you anonymous. But if the application wants to be compliant, then you need to provide some mechanism to open the box. Many solutions actually have this closed or private credentials, but they have a mechanism to open it, right? You can sophisticate it with multi-signatures, all kind of stuff, right? In reality, it's super difficult because even you work with governments and say, okay, only the government keys are going to be able to open this box. A lot of governments don't even have keys, or just to find these keys, it's going to be a bureaucratic nightmare, right? So it's a hard problem, difficult to solve right now.
Just quickly about the compliance with the government. Absolutely, it makes sense to build technology that complies with regulations, and then that makes me think like, could you change regulations? Could you, for example, I have friends that are in Zanzibar building like what they're calling a digital free zone, where you have a digital twin. I don't. It's kind of, I don't have time to explain it, but like, if there's not just a lot of opportunity to experiment with identity technology through code. There's a lot of willing presidents of nations, regulators around the world that recognize that this is a constraint on the technology and possibly the world that we're trying to build. And I think if there's a good reason to build in pseudonymity, that isn't just like evading and like trying to make it more easy to break laws. Like, I think you're going to have jurisdictions around the world that want to be more competitive than some other nations that are that have less good regulations around that.
Yeah, just a quick note that governments are the source of risk for every blockchain project, I guess, currently.
Good. Last question here for all of you is, where are you currently investing your time, effort, money in your respective teams? Like, what are the open questions that you are trying to address right now? So
Adoption. That's it. I mean, these solutions have been around for years, right? Very few of the things that we are discussing here are new. They are just combined it differently, right? So the cryptography, the verified credentials, the DIDs, the decentralized concepts, permissionless things, all these things been there for years. We are combining them in a more, I would say, more intelligent ways. But what really matters is adoption, and I think adoption in identity equals to uh, uh, network effect and mass scale, right? Nobody wants an identity solution that doesn't have millions of users in it already, right? And then you start with this catch-22 where you don't get the users because you don't get the applications and so on and so forth, right? So our efforts right now are in defining the right incentives to create this network effect.
I mean, on that note, in order to get adoption, our current thesis for Gitcoin Passport is lots and lots of partnerships. It's kind of how it's been built from the start, but like just using Reclaim as an example, them building really interesting credentials that have high cost of forgery, whether it's like you being able to import your Uber history, which could be, again, thousands of dollars cost of forgery, Amazon history, thousands of dollars cost of forgery, right? Like you totally de-risk apps um, letting these people in, assuming that they're unique humans, if that credential stamp is working well. Another thing that we're exploring is how to create like a mechanism for people that are likely to be human or they're trusted for some reason to say that this account is trustworthy, and you can punish me if they do something wrong. We call that identity staking. So you put up some crypto. Um, you can put it up for yourself as well, and say I'm trustworthy. But if I do something wrong, you can just take it from me. So we're experimenting there with like there's stakes to um, your attestations about your trustworthiness and other people's trustworthiness. Yeah.
In Upala, we are focusing right now on the exact amounts of this price of forgery, or cost of forgery, for like every major verification method. And to do that, I'm thinking of uniting forces with those platforms that are interested in, because Sybil resistance and this information about price of forgery is a public good. So I believe many platforms are interested in it, and hopefully we will find an answer together. And next is like standardizing identity solutions, and probably coming to a real decentralized identity system, alternative to government ones.
You just briefly touched base on it, building a universal Sybil resistant approach, right? And there's the probabilistic approach, but I'm curious to hear how you guys think about how can we solve this. Is it going to be like a standardization and methods? Are we going to all use orbs in the future, or how are we going to do it?
Let me answer that. You mentioned probability, but in my opinion, this is kind of subjective parameter. On my part in Upala, we are making this price of forgery score, which is totally defined by the market. So I believe it's totally objective. Yeah. Hopefully I answered your question.
I'm more referring to proof of personhood, and I would say on that matter, it's pretty clear if someone is a person or not, right? How is your answer? We don't really need that.
We cannot actually cannot actually be 100% sure that person is a real human on the web. I think that's unachievable ever. And you mentioned the WorldCoin. I see it as just one of the probably puzzles, one of the pieces of the whole puzzle of the whole real decentralized digital identity. So this orb is also can be also priced. Like, yeah, again, I'm biased. I strongly believe in markets, and I strongly believe that the only way to objectively estimate uniqueness is cost of forgery.
I agree that if one thing you leave from this panel, it's thinking about the cost of forgery, and that it is very, very hard actually to determine if an account is a unique account, and that person that account that has that maybe very high cost of forgery score may have a ton of other accounts as well that they're kind of just engineering behind the scenes. I think is everyone has different ideas probably of like a universal proof of personhood like protocol, but like I think if there's some way to make it really privacy preserving, and for people that have any number of parts of their lives that are strongly suggestive of their unique humanity and or reputation, that is really valuable for projects. And I don't think that I think like we're just kind of like inching towards that with Gitcoin Passport. And it's kind of a challenging, like two-sided marketplace problem. And it's also very unlikely that there's a one-size-fits-all score that all kinds of projects that people care about will want, which is also why we're making it very easy for projects to develop custom scoring algorithms.
Maybe I just want to add that there is a different world outside of Web3 that is coming, that is digital identities for citizens, right? In your regular business, you don't have to worry about uniqueness and humanity because the government is taking care of that. They solve that for the entire economy, right? It's the thing that they haven't moved fast enough for the digital economy, and they didn't provide us with accessible, easy to use identity systems. But this will happen, right? In Europe, in America, all over the place. So at some point, everybody's going to have their unique credential of citizen, human being, et cetera, right? I think or at least our focus in PolygonID is to work on the protocol, on the communication that happens when you present that credentials to someone, right? So you are not exposed permanently forever just for having one interaction with that credential.
Just a quick thought about like how normal businesses, they just they can rely on the government. I was like thinking like why is that the case? The cost of or the risk of forgery is like you get thrown in jail, and it's like the person that's trying to forge has to make that calculation, is it worth it? And it's not really that equivalent for like a random Web3 project. Like you can't, what are you gonna throw someone in jail for like farming an airdrop? So yeah, it's fun to think about.
And adding again to this, how do I see this situation in Web3 world? I imagine this identities that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, a lot more than your government ID. It's possible to create. It's unlimited actually, your digital identity. So instead of putting someone in jail, we just can grab a piece of their identity, so that they don't have this anymore, or we can even take it all, so that they will have to start over. Yeah, that's my thought.
Cool. Unfortunately, we'll have to end the panel here, but a lot of interesting ideas just beneath them out. But thank you so much, folks, for joining on the panel and for your insights.
Thank you.